The morning sun baked the cracked asphalt outside Duke's auto and cycle garage, a place that smelled like gasoline, metal, and broken dreams. Wren Carter wiped her hands on an oil-stained rag and squinted toward the open highway. She was 23, skin glistening with sweat, curls tied up under a faded red bandana. Her jumpsuit was too big. Her hands were too small for the wrenches she wielded, but she made them work. She always did. Wren wasn't supposed to be there, at least according to some people. Girls don't fix engines, her boss Duke liked to say, even though she'd rebuilt more transmissions than half the men he hired. But Wren didn't argue. She let her work speak louder than the noise. She loved engines because they made sense. People? They were complicated. Engines just needed care, patience, understanding. They broke down for reasons. People broke you for none. It was a slow Tuesday morning when the rumble came, the kind of rumble that makes conversation stop, and every wrench in the room freeze mid-air. A motorcycle convoy rolled into the lot. Chrome, leather, tattoos, attitude, the Hells Angels. Their leader, a tall, grizzled man with a scar across his cheek and a leather vest that said Reaper, cut the engine and stared at the shop. His Harley coughed, sputtered, and died in front of the bay doors. Smoke curled out of the exhaust. Duke stepped forward, trying to mask his nervousness. "What can we do for you, sir?" Reaper swung his leg off the bike and frowned. "Your sign says you fix anything." "Sure do," Duke said quickly. "We'll take a look." But when he saw the black leather patches and skull insignia, Duke leaned close to his men and muttered, "No one touches that bike until he pays cash up front. Got it?" Wren stood a few feet away, curiosity sparking behind her eyes. That bike wasn't just broken. It was hurting. She could hear it in the uneven idle, the misaligned spark, the faint rattle in the primary chain. And before Duke could stop her, she stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir," she said to Reaper. "Sounds like a timing issue, maybe a burnt valve too." The entire garage fell silent. One of the bikers snorted. Did she just diagnose it by ear? Reaper raised an eyebrow, studying the girl. "You, mechanic or a magician?" "Little bit of both," Wren said with a half-smile. He chuckled, a deep, gravelly sound. "All right, magic girl, show me what you got," Duke hissed under his breath. "Wren, step back. You're not authorized to—" But Reaper cut him off. "She's the only one who seems to know what she's talking about." And just like that, Wren got to work. The fix for the next hour, Wren knelt beside the Harley. Her hands moved with a rhythm born from love and memory. Her father's hands, now gone, had taught her this craft when she was a child fixing lawnmower engines behind their small Georgia home. She cleaned the carburetor, realigned the spark plugs, and adjusted the valve clearance with precision. The Hells Angels watched in silence. No one dared interrupt. When she finally hit the ignition, the bike roared to life. Steady, strong, like a lion that remembered who it was. Reaper's eyes widened. "Damn, you fixed her." Wren smiled modestly. She just needed someone to listen. Reaper revved the throttle, grinning. "You got good ears, kid. What's your name?" "Wren Carter. You ever think about leaving this dump and working for someone who respects you?" She laughed softly. "Every day." But before Reaper could say more, Duke stormed out of his office, red-faced. The fallout Wren. "My office." Now. She wiped her hands and followed, bracing herself. The door slammed shut behind them. "What the hell were you thinking?" Duke barked. "Touching a customer's bike without my permission?" "He needed help, I fixed it." "I don't care if you fixed the Pope's Harley. You embarrassed me in front of them, made me look like I can't run my own shop." Wren's jaw tightened. "You can't run a shop if you don't let your mechanics do their job." That was the wrong thing to say. Duke's face went cold. "You're fired." Wren blinked. "You're serious?" "Clean your tools. You're done here." She stood there for a long moment, shock, anger, disbelief swirling in her chest. Then she nodded, picked up her small metal toolbox, and walked out. Reaper was still outside, talking with his crew. When he saw her leaving, his brow furrowed. "What happened?" "I got fired." "For fixing my bike?" She shrugged. Guess I fixed the wrong thing. Reaper looked at Duke through the window, then back at her. You deserve better than this. He reached into his vest and handed her a small card. Come by this address tomorrow morning. You won't regret it. The offer. The address led her to a biker-owned community garage outside the city limits. Smaller, rougher, but full of heart. When she arrived, the smell of metal and grease hit her like home. Reaper was waiting. I wasn't kidding, he said. We could use someone like you. Ren hesitated. You're a Hell's Angel. People talk. Let them talk, Reaper said. You think we're all criminals? Some of us just build bikes, help veterans, run charities. The world sees what it wants to see. She studied him carefully. Beneath the tattoos and leather, there was truth in his eyes. What would you have me do? Run this garage, he said simply. I'm on the road too much. We need someone who gives a damn. You in? It took her a second to realize what was happening. You want me to run it? You've got skill, discipline, heart. That's leadership. Her throat tightened. I don't know what to say. Say yes. She did. The rebuild weeks turned into months. Ren transformed the small biker garage into something extraordinary. She trained young mechanics, some from broken homes, some fresh out of rehab. She taught them the language of engines, the patience of repair, the dignity of work. Word spread fast. People began coming from miles away to get their bikes fixed by the girl who listens to engines. One afternoon, an old pickup rolled in. Duke stepped out. Ren froze, wiping her hands on a towel. He looked smaller than she remembered. I heard you're doing good, he said awkwardly. Trying, she replied. He shuffled his boots. Listen, Ren. I shouldn't have fired you. You were the best mechanic I ever had. I let pride get in the way. Ren gave him a gentle smile. Engines don't hold grudges. Neither do I. He chuckled, scratching his head. You ever need a partner or a place to expand? She shook her head softly. Thank you, Duke, but I've already found my place. The breakdown one rainy evening, Reaper didn't show up to their weekly meeting. Hours later, Ren got a call. He'd been hit by a truck on the interstate. Critical condition. She rushed to the hospital. Machines beeped. Tubes ran across his arms. The man who'd given her a chance looked frail, fading. Hey, she whispered, taking his hand. You don't get to quit on me now. He smiled weakly. Looks like I taught you too well. Don't say that. You're gonna pull through. But his eyes were distant. Promise me something, kid, he murmured. Keep the garage going, help people. Don't let the light die. Tears blurred her vision. I promise. He squeezed her hand once and then he was gone. The ride. The day of the funeral, hundreds of bikers rode together. Chrome gleaming, engines roaring like thunder. Ren led the procession on Reaper's Harley, the same one she'd fixed that day. When they reached the cemetery, she parked the bike and laid a wrench on his coffin. You fixed me too, she whispered. The legacy months later, the garage was renamed Reaper's Haven. The sign read, a place where broken things get rebuilt, and people do too. Under Ren's leadership, it became a sanctuary, not just for bikers, but for anyone who needed a second chance. Ex-cons, single moms, runaway teens, she hired them all, because she knew what it felt like to be underestimated. One day, a news crew came by. They'd heard about the black mechanic girl changing lives in a biker shop. The reporter asked, "What drives you to do this?" Ren thought for a moment, then said softly, "Engines break down because someone ignored the warning signs. People are the same. I just make sure no one gets left unfixed." The surprise AA a few weeks later, a man in a suit walked into the garage, a lawyer representing a local foundation. "Are you Ren Carter?" "Yes. Mr. Reaper left a letter for you. It was in his will." He handed her a sealed envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Kid, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't cry too much. You'll rust your tools. You gave me something I didn't think I'd ever find again. Hope. You made a bunch of rough men remember what loyalty and kindness look like. This garage is yours now. All of it. The land, the tools, everything. Build something beautiful. Keep listening to the engines. And to people. Proud of you always. Reaper." Wren pressed the letter to her chest and cried, her tears mixing with grease and gratitude. The heart of steel years later, the garage stood tall, expanded, thriving, full of life. A mural of Reaper and Wren covered one wall, painted by one of the kids she'd mentored. She'd married another mechanic, had 2 children, and every night before closing she'd whisper to them, "Engines have hearts too. You just have to listen." Sometimes she'd look up at Reaper's photo and smile. The man the world feared had given her the chance no one else would. And the girl the world doubted had turned a gang's garage into a home for the broken. Epilogue. The girl who listened. A new apprentice once asked her, "Miss Wren, what's the secret to fixing things?" She smiled, tightening a bolt. "The secret isn't fixing, it's caring. Anyone can hold a wrench. Not everyone can hold a heart." The boy nodded slowly. "Did someone teach you that?" She glanced at Reaper's Harley, still shining in the corner. "Yeah," she said softly. "Someone did." The garage filled with the sound of laughter, music, and the deep purr of rebuilt engines. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting everything gold. And for a moment, Wren felt her father, Reaper, and every person she'd ever helped, right there beside her. Because kindness, like steel, doesn't rust. It just gets stronger with time. Years rolled by like open highways. The garage thrived. People came not just to repair their bikes, but to rebuild their lives. One evening, the sound of a familiar rumble echoed down the road. A Harley, heavy and powerful. Wren looked up from her workstation, heart stuttering. When the bike stopped, a young man removed his helmet. His face was roughened by the road, but his eyes, they were Reaper's. He smiled. "You Wren Carter?" "Yes," she said cautiously. "I'm Kyle, Reaper's son." Her breath caught. "He never told me he had a son," Kyle chuckled. "He didn't tell me much either. But before he passed, I got a letter. Told me if I ever wanted to understand who he became at the end, to find you." Tears welled in her eyes. "He changed, Kyle. He found peace here." Kyle looked around the garage at the laughter, the clang of tools, the smell of steel and life. "Yeah," he whispered. "I can see that." He stayed for a while, watching how she ran the place, not like a boss, but like a heartbeat. He saw how ex-cons were now teachers, how runaway teens were learning patience and pride through craft. It wasn't a business anymore. It was a second chance machine. When he finally spoke again, his voice broke. "You know, I used to think my dad was just a biker with scars. But now I see he was a man who finally found something worth protecting." Wren smiled through her tears. "He protected me. Now, I protect his legacy." The day the cameras came one spring morning. The garage got a visit from someone Wren never expected. A reporter from American Voices, a national network. "We're doing a segment on unsung heroes," the woman explained. "People who are quietly changing their communities." "Your name kept coming up?" Wren laughed. "Me? I just fix bikes," the reporter smiled. "No, Ms. Carter, you fix people." The story went viral. Millions saw it. A photo of Wren, grease on her cheek, standing beside Reaper's Harley with the sign Reaper's Haven behind her, became a symbol of hope. Letters started pouring in. A teenage girl from Detroit wrote, "My dad said girls can't work with engines. You proved him wrong." A veteran from Texas wrote, "I came home lost. Your story reminded me I still have worth." A single mother wrote, "If you can rebuild steel, I can rebuild my life." Every message reminded Wren of something Reaper once said, "When you fix one thing right, it has a way of fixing 10 more." The ceremony 6 months later, Wren was invited to Washington. D.C. She didn't understand why, until she arrived at a hall filled with mechanics, bikers, and veterans. The Department of Labor had chosen her for the American Service Award, for transforming a place of machines into a place of humanity. When her name was called, she walked up in her black jumpsuit, her hands still calloused, her heart still humble, as she accepted the award. She spoke softly into the microphone. "My father taught me how to listen to engines. A biker named Reaper taught me how to listen to people. The world's full of noise, but kindness. Kindness is the quiet that keeps it running." The crowd stood and applauded. Some cried, and somewhere deep inside, Wren felt Reaper smiling, a return. Home after the ceremony, Wren drove back to the garage in her old pickup, headlights cutting through the night. When she parked, she found someone waiting by the door, a teenage girl with a duffel bag. "You Wren?" the girl asked. "I am." "You lost?" "No," she said. "I just need a place to work, to be somebody." Wren saw herself in that girl, the same fear, the same hunger for belonging. She smiled gently. "You ever held a wrench?" The girl shook her head. "Then it's time you learn," Wren said, handing her one. "We fix engines and we fix people. Welcome home." The girl's eyes filled with tears. And that night, under the hum of fluorescent lights, the garage took in one more broken soul and started to heal her too. Years later, Wren grew older, her curls streaked with silver, her hands still strong. The garage had expanded into 3 branches across the state, each one run by someone she'd once mentored. Ethan, one of her first apprentices, walked up one evening with a grin. "Miss Wren," he said, "a lady's asking for you out front." She wiped her hands and went to see. There, standing beside a vintage Harley, was a frail woman in her 70s, Reaper's widow. "Mrs. Daniels?" Wren whispered. "I didn't know." The woman smiled softly. "I wanted to see the place he wrote about." "Said you gave him back his soul." Wren took her hand. "He gave me back my life." They walked through the garage together, past the mural of Reaper smiling beside his bike. Mrs. Daniels traced the painted lines of his face, whispering, "He looks happy." "He was," Wren said quietly. Right here, the final ride. When Mrs. Daniels passed a year later, her last request was simple, that her ashes be scattered beside Reaper's along the open road. So one morning, Wren and the whole crew rode out. Hundreds of bikers, engines thundering like a chorus of angels. They rode until the city disappeared, until the wind felt like freedom. At a quiet ridge overlooking the valley, Wren stopped. She opened the urn, the wind catching the ashes, carrying them away like silver dust across the sunrise. "Ride free," she whispered. Then she mounted her bike, Reaper's old Harley, and started the engine. The sound was smooth, deep, alive. It had been years, but the bike still purred as if saying, "I remember you." The closing scene that evening, back at the garage, the sun dipped low, painting gold streaks across the walls. The new apprentices were closing up shop, laughter echoing off the concrete. Wren sat by the window with a cup of coffee, watching the sunset dance on Reaper's Harley. A small sign above the doorway caught the light. Read, "Rebuild, Restore, Remember." She smiled softly and whispered, "You did good, old man. You really did." Then she stood, turned off the lights, and closed the door behind her, the sound of the Harley's heartbeat still echoing in the dark. 15 years later, the sound of engines still filled the same stretch of road outside Atlanta. The garage had grown into something more than anyone ever imagined. A place where people didn't just fix bikes. They fixed themselves. Above the wide doors hung a new sign, freshly painted, Carter & Sons, home of the Heartriders. Inside, a dozen mechanics, men and women, young and old, worked side by side. Laughter blended with the metallic symphony of hammers, air guns, and old rock music playing low on the radio. But the air felt different today, softer, reverent, because today wasn't about work. Today was about memory. At the center of the shop, covered in a white cloth, stood Reaper's Harley, restored again, gleaming like it had just rolled out of heaven. Beside it, a photo of Wren Carter smiling, grease on her cheek, her eyes alive with that spark that had saved so many. The crowd gathered. Her apprentices, the bikers she'd helped, the girls she'd mentored, the old-timers who once doubted her and now couldn't speak her name without pride. Ethan, now grown, strong, and confident, stepped forward. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Wren once told me," he began, "that machines are like people. They don't need to be perfect, they just need to be cared for." That's what she did. She cared. For all of us. He paused, looking around the crowd. "I wouldn't be here without her. None of us would. She didn't just fix engines. She fixed hearts." Behind him, the wind caught the corner of the old mural, the one of Reaper and Wren side by side looking out over the open road. Someone had added new words beneath it. "The road never ends, only the riders change." A new rider after the ceremony. When the crowd had thinned and the sun dipped low, a young girl, maybe 12 years old, lingered by Reaper's Harley. She wore overalls too big for her, her hair tied up with an oily bandana. She whispered, "I want to ride one day." "Like her?" Ethan, standing nearby, smiled. "Then you will." He handed her a wrench, Wren's old one, the handle worn smooth. "Start here," he said. "Learn to listen before you ride." "That's what she taught me." The girl nodded solemnly and took the wrench as if it were a sacred thing, and maybe it was. Wren's ride into memory later that night. When everyone had gone, Ethan locked up the shop and walked outside. The moon hung full, bathing the world in silver. He looked at Reaper's Harley again, and for a split second, he could swear he saw her, Wren, leather jacket, curls pulled back, eyes full of light, sitting astride the bike. Smiling, the ghost of her voice echoed softly in his mind. "Engines don't die if you keep their fire alive." Then she revved the bike once, just once, and the sound faded into the stars. The message that stayed in time. Stories of the black mechanic girl who fixed a Hell's Angels bike spread far beyond Georgia. Her story became part of biker folklore, told at roadside diners, whispered over campfires, shared on social media by people who had never met her, but swore she'd change them anyway. She was no longer just Wren Carter, the fired mechanic. She was Wren, the healer of steel, the girl who fixed the Reaper, the woman who taught men to feel again. And every person who ever walked into her shop carried a piece of her forward. In their hands, in their hearts, in their work. The final words: if you drove down Highway 17 today, you'd still find the garage, the same flickering sign, the same smell of oil and dust and hope. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, a Harley's roar cuts through the air, even though no one can see it. Locals say it's Reaper and Wren, riding together again, free on the wind. And maybe it's true, because legends don't die, they ride forever. Moral of the story. Sometimes, life fires you for the very thing you were born to do. Sometimes, the world underestimates the hands that can heal it. And sometimes, the loudest engines in heaven are the souls who fixed others when no one else would. Because love doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums quietly under the hood.